Level 1. The Pier Kid. You're 11 years old and you've never been past the breakwater. Your rod is a hand-me-down surf rod with a reel that grinds when you crank it, a birthday gift from an uncle who thought it was a toy and had no idea what it would start. You fish the same pier every Saturday morning before the tourists arrive, casting frozen shrimp into water that never gives you anything bigger than a sand perch. That's fine. You're not fishing for the fish yet. You're fishing for the feeling. Then, one Saturday, an old charter boat comes in at the far dock and you watch a deckhand hang a striped marlin from a hoist by its tail, blue and silver and longer than you are tall, blood running down its bill into a drain in the concrete. You've seen fish in books. You've never seen anything alive look like that. The captain, sun-cracked and quiet, notices you staring and asks if you want to touch the bill. You do. It's rougher than you expect, like sandpaper wrapped around a spear. He tells you this fish fought for 40 minutes before it gave up. You go home that night, and you don't sleep well, not because you're scared, because your head is full of blue water you've never seen, and you already know you're going to spend your life trying to get there. You start reading everything, charter boat brochures you pick up from the marina office and never throw away, a library book on billfish species that you renew 4 times. You learn the difference between a white marlin and a striped marlin before you've ever set foot on a boat that could catch either. You learn what a ballyhoo is, a small bait fish rigged with wire through the skull so it swims naturally when trolled. You practice rigging one at your kitchen table with dental floss because you don't have wire yet, and it looks nothing like the ones you saw at the dock, but you keep doing it until it starts to. Level 2. The Deckhand's Shadow. You're 14, and you've been hanging around the marina so often that the mates on the sport fishing boats know your name. One of them, a weathered guy named Dobbs, who's been mating for 20 years, lets you help clean the boat after charters in exchange for scraps of knowledge you didn't ask for but absorb anyway. You learn to coil a leader line so it doesn't kink. You learn that the outriggers, the long poles that hold lines away from the boat's wake, exist because a fish sees the wake and gets spooked, but it won't see a bait skipping cleanly off to the side. You learn that the bite isn't random, it's tide, moisture in the air, temperature breaks in the water that you can see on a chart plotter as color changes, if you know what you're looking at. Your first real job is scrubbing the fish box and re-spooling reels with monofilament, a job that takes 3 hours and pays almost nothing, and you do it every weekend without complaint because it puts you 15 feet from the cockpit where the real work happens. You watch how Dobbs sets a drag on a reel, testing it against his own forearm before a charter ever leaves the dock, tightening it just enough that a fish can't spool the line, but not so much that it snaps the leader on the first run. You try it yourself on an empty reel and get it wrong twice before Dobbs shows you the difference in feel between too loose and correct. Your first fish comes on a slow afternoon when the charter has already left and nobody's paying attention. Dobbs hands you a rod with live bait still on it because nobody wants to waste it. A kingfish hits within a minute, and you fumble the rod, and your drag is wrong, too tight, and the line parts almost immediately. Dobbs doesn't say anything, he just re-rigs the rod and hands it back. Second cast, you get it right. The fish runs, you let it, you feel the rod bend into something alive on the other end for the first time in your life, and you land a 4-kilogram kingfish that nobody will ever remember but you.
Level 3. The Deckhand. You're 17 and you've talked your way into your first paid position as a deckhand on a real sport fishing boat, 41 feet, twin diesels, a tower that lets the captain spot fish from above the water. The captain is Dobbs' old friend, a woman named Reyes, who's fished these waters for 3 decades and doesn't tolerate wasted motion on her boat. Your first week, you learn that being a deckhand is 90% preparation and 10% glory, and the 10% only happens if the 90% was done right. You learn to rig ballyhoo properly now, with actual wire, threading it through the bait's eye sockets so the hook sits exactly right, so the bait spins without spinning too much, because too much spin twists the leader, and a twisted leader breaks under load. You do this 40 times before a single charter because Reyes wants spares ready the moment a fish shreds a bait. You learn to read a temperature break on the plotter, a line where cooler water meets warmer water, where bait fish congregate because plankton congregates there, where predator fish follow the bait fish. Reyes doesn't explain this to you in words most of the time. She just points the boat at a color change on the screen and tells you to get the lines out, and you learn to trust the instinct before you understand the reasoning behind it. Your first real test comes on a charter with a wealthy client who's paid a fortune to catch a blue marlin he's chased for years without success. The fish hits mid-morning, and everything happens at once. You clear the other lines so they don't tangle, you strap the client into the fighting chair, you call out to Reyes what the line angle is doing so she can maneuver the boat to keep pressure right. The fight lasts an hour and 10 minutes. The client's arms are shaking by the end, and when the fish finally comes boat side, blue and enormous and exhausted, you're the one who reaches for the leader with gloved hands to bring it close enough to tagging. Your hands are shaking too. You tag it and release it because Reyes only keeps fish for real reasons, and you watch it swim down into water so deep you can't see where it disappears. The client tips you more money than you've ever held. You don't spend it. You put it toward a real reel, your first serious piece of equipment, a 2-speed lever drag that costs more than you expect a piece of metal and gears to cost. Level 4, the mate. 4 years as a deckhand and Reyes promotes you to first mate, which sounds like a small title change and is actually an entirely different job. You're not just prepping bait now, you're calling the shots on the cockpit while Reyes drives, deciding which lines to clear when a fish is hooked, deciding when to gaff a fish and when to tag and release, managing clients who don't know the difference between excitement and recklessness and sometimes need to be told to sit down before they hurt themselves. You start learning the parts of the job that aren't romantic at all. Weather. You learn to read a marine forecast the way you once learned to read a temperature break, and you learn that the ocean doesn't care how badly a client wants to fish today. You call off a charter for the first time because a squall line is building faster than predicted, and the client is furious, and you take the anger because that's the job now, protecting people from a decision they'd regret making themselves. You also start long-lining occasionally on the side. Different boats, different world. Commercial longline work for swordfish means setting 40 kilometers of mainline with baited hooks every few meters, running it overnight, hauling it back at dawn. The gear's heavier, the hours are brutal. The payoff is measured in kilograms sold at the dock instead of trophies hung on a wall. You do this for extra money during the off-season for sport fishing, and it teaches you a different relationship with the same ocean, one where the fish isn't a story, it's a paycheck, and the two feelings live uncomfortably next to each other in your chest. A swordfish comes up on the long line one dawn weighing more than you do, and hauling it over the rail with a gaff takes 3 of you working together, and afterward you stand on deck with your hands bleeding through your gloves, and you understand something about the ocean that the charter boat never taught you. Out here, the fish always outweighs your understanding of it. You're 22 years old, and you've started to understand how small you actually are against something this large.
Level 5, the captain. You're 27, and you've saved enough, borrowed enough, and convinced a bank of enough to buy your first boat, a used 38-footer with an engine that needs work and electronics a decade out of date. Reyes helps you refit it, calling in favors from mechanics who owe her, and within 4 months, you're running your own charters out of the same marina where you used to scrub fish boxes for scraps of knowledge. Being captain is different from being mate in a way nobody fully warns you about. Every decision is yours and yours alone. You're the one reading the weather and deciding whether to go out. You're the one managing a crew of 2 who are counting on you for a paycheck. You're the one talking to clients on the phone, explaining the difference between a good day and a slow day, managing expectations before they ever step on the boat, because a disappointed client on social media can cost you charters for months. Your first season is rough financially. Fuel costs more than you budgeted, a hydraulic line bursts on the outrigger system mid-charter, and you have to refund a full day's pay while still paying your mate. You learn that running a boat is a business wrapped around a passion, and the business half will bankrupt you if you let the passion half make all the decisions.
You start tracking fuel burn per nautical mile, adjusting routes based on where the fish were biting last week, not just where you feel like going. You learn the difference between chasing fish and hunting fish. Chasing is emotional. Hunting is data, patience, and small adjustments that compound. By your second season, word has spread that your boat puts clients on fish more consistently than most in the marina, and your calendar starts filling months in advance. You hire a second mate. You upgrade your electronics with money you actually have instead of money you're hoping to have. You're 29 years old, and for the first time since the pier at 11, you feel like the ocean is starting to answer you back instead of just tolerating you. Level 6, the tournament captain. You're 33, and a client convinces you to enter your first major offshore tournament, a 3-day billfish event with a prize purse that could change your entire year. You've fished tournaments as crew before, but never as the captain whose name is on the entry, whose reputation rises or falls with the results. The pressure is different from a normal charter. 40 other boats are working the same waters, all with better electronics, some with captains who've won this exact tournament before. Radio chatter is coded, half-truths about where fish are biting, because nobody wants to give away their spot. You learn to read between the lines of other captains' radio calls, learn which voices are lying about a slow morning to keep a hotspot secret. Day 1, nothing. Day 2, your angler hooks a blue marlin at dawn that estimates well over 200 kilograms just by the way it takes drag off the reel on the first run. The fight lasts 90 minutes. Your hands are on the wheel the entire time, keeping the boat angled to relieve pressure on the line every time the fish sounds deep, backing down on the throttle when it surfaces and runs. Your mate works the rod tip, your angler's arms are failing by minute 60, and you talk him through it the way Reyes once talked through fish for you. Calm words layered over your own racing heart. The fish comes boat side at last light. It qualifies, and it's the biggest fish weighed at the tournament scale that evening. You don't win the tournament outright. You place third overall. But third at your first major event with your own boat is enough to change how the marina looks at you. Bigger clients start calling. A tackle company reaches out about sponsoring your reels and rods in exchange for your name on their website. You're not famous, you're known, which in this world matters more. Level 7, the record chaser. You're 38, and you've fished enough tournaments now to understand exactly what separates a good captain from an elite one. It's not luck, it's pattern recognition, built from thousands of hours reading water that looks identical to an untrained eye. You can see a rip line, a place where two currents meet and debris and baitfish collect from 400 meters away, a seam in the water that most captains would run straight past. You start chasing something bigger than tournament placings, an IGFA line class world record, a specific weight of fish, caught on a specific breaking strength of line, verified by an approved scale and witnesses and a chain of documentation that has to be airtight or the record doesn't count, no matter how big the fish was. You spend a full season targeting yellowfin tuna on 8-kilogram line class specifically, turning down heavier tackle even when a monster tuna is clearly working the bait, because the record only counts on the line class you declared. It takes 11 charters across 4 months before the right fish finds the right bait on the right line. The fight lasts 2 hours and 40 minutes, because 8-kilogram line can't pressure a fish the way heavier tackle can. Every pump of the rod has to be gentle. Every mistake by your angler could snap tackle a fraction of the fish's actual strength. When it finally comes to the boat, you already know from the fight alone that it's enormous. On the certified scale at the dock, it breaks the existing record by 6 kilograms. The paperwork takes 3 months to process. When IGFA confirms it, your name is in a record book that serious anglers around the world actually read.
Level 8, the fleet owner. You're 44, and you've expanded beyond a single boat. 2 more captains work for you now, running charters and tournaments under your name. Your reputation extending further than your own hands can physically fish. This is a different kind of pressure. When your captains make a mistake, a bad call on weather, a poorly maintained hydraulic system, it comes back to you, your name, your business, your years of built reputation. You spend more time now on maintenance schedules, insurance renewals, and marketing than you do with a rod in your hand, and there are days this feels like a loss, trading the ocean for spreadsheets. But you also see the business side compound in ways the fishing itself never could. Charters booked 18 months in advance, a waiting list for tournament seasons, young deckhands who remind you exactly of yourself at 17, scrubbing fish boxes for scraps of knowledge, and you find yourself repeating Reyes's habits without meaning to, pointing at a temperature break on a screen instead of explaining it in words, trusting that the instinct will teach itself the way it taught you. A storm system destroys one of your boats at the dock during an unexpected off-season hurricane, a total loss that insurance only partially covers. It's the worst financial year of your career. You almost sell the business. You don't, because the ocean that nearly ruined you is the same ocean that gave you every good thing you have, and walking away from it now would mean the storm won twice. Level 9. The Legend. You're 55. Younger captains in the marina ask you for advice the way you once asked Dobbs and Reyes, standing near your boat at dawn, hoping you'll say something useful without them having to ask directly. You give it freely now, the way it was given to you, because the knowledge only means something if it keeps moving to the next person young enough to still be amazed by a marlin coming up out of blue water. Your record still stands 6 years later, though you know somewhere a young captain on a modern boat with better electronics than you ever had is quietly chasing it, and part of you hopes they break it, because that's how this is supposed to work. You still fish personally 3 days a week, not for tournaments anymore, not for clients, just you and the water and the particular silence of open ocean before the sun comes up, the same silence that first pulled at something in your chest at 11 years old on a pier you haven't stood on in decades. You think, some mornings, about the old captain who let an 11-year-old touch a marlin spill on a random Saturday, a 5-second act of kindness he probably forgot before he got home that night. He had no idea what he started. You've tried to be that captain for a dozen kids at the dock over the years, not knowing which 5-second moment will be the one that changes someone's entire life the way that one changed yours. And somewhere, right now, a kid is standing at the end of a pier with a hand-me-down rod, casting frozen bait into water that's never given them anything worth remembering, watching a boat come in at the far dock with something enormous hanging from a hoist. They don't know anything yet. They don't know what a temperature break is, or what 8-kilogram line class means, or what it costs to run a boat, or how long a marlin can fight before it gives up. All they know is that they can't stop staring, and that feeling is the only qualification anyone has ever needed to start.